So for those of you who don't already know, Conan O'Brien is the host of The Tonight Show, and he quit because they were going to push his time in a later time. And I guess that means less views, and it's a very less favorable time for Jay Leno. So he's essentially being pushed aside for Jay Leno, and he didn't feel very good about that, right? And there's probably something that we don't know about why that happened and why Conan O'Brien and et cetera, et cetera. But he did go ahead and quit, and he made this whole documentary where he's sad, he's depressed, and then he goes ahead and goes, you know what? I'm going to do a comedy show. I'm going to go across America and have these shows and also film a documentary along with it. If you're new to this channel, my name is Tina Leader, and here we talk about charisma, confidence, and communication. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if that's something you'd like to learn more about. So I came across the Conan O'Brien commencement speech, and a lot of it was a lot of comedy. He's very funny. And towards the end, he really goes into his life advice for these new graduates. Let's just go ahead and take a look at that clip and enjoy.
Now, by definition, commencement speakers at an Ivy League college are considered successful. But a little over a year ago, I experienced a profound and very public disappointment. I did not get what I wanted, and I left a system that had nurtured and helped define me for the better part of 17 years. I went from being in the center of the grid to not only off the grid, but underneath the coffee table that the grid sits on, lost in the shag carpeting that is underneath the coffee table supporting the grid. It was the making of a career disaster and a terrible analogy. But then something spectacular happened. Fog-bound, with no compass and adrift, I started trying things. I grew a strange cinnamon beard. I dove into the world of social media. I started tweeting my comedy. I threw together a national tour. I played the guitar. I did stand-up, wore a skin-tight blue leather suit, recorded an album, made a documentary, and frightened my friends and family. Ultimately, I abandoned all preconceived perceptions of my career path and stature and took a job on basic cable, with a network most famous for showing reruns, along with sitcoms created by a tall black man who dresses like an old black woman. I did a lot of silly, unconventional, spontaneous, and seemingly irrational things. And guess what? With the exception of the blue leather suit, it was the most satisfying and fascinating year of my professional life. To this day, I still don't understand exactly what happened, but I have never had more fun, been more challenged, and this is important, had more conviction about what I was doing. How could this be true? Well, it's simple. There are few things more liberating in this life than having your worst fear realized. I went to college with many people who prided themselves on knowing exactly who they were and exactly where they were going. At Harvard, 5 different guys in my class told me they would one day be president of the United States. 4 of them were later killed in motel shootouts. The other ones briefly hosted Blue's Clues before dying senselessly in yet another motel shootout. Your path at 22 will not necessarily be your path at 32 or 42. One's dream is constantly evolving, rising and falling, changing course. This happens in every job, but because I have worked in comedy for 25 years, I can probably speak best about my own profession. Way back in the 1940s, there was a very, very funny man named Jack Benny. He was a giant star, easily one of the greatest comedians of his generation. And a much younger man named Johnny Carson wanted very much to be Jack Benny. In some ways he was, but in many ways he wasn't. He emulated Jack Benny, but his own quirks and mannerisms, along with the changing medium, pulled him in a different direction. And yet, his failure to completely become his hero made him the funniest person of his generation. David Letterman wanted to be Johnny Carson, and was not. And as a result, my generation of comedians wanted to be David Letterman. And none of us are. My peers and I have all missed that mark in 1,000 different ways. But the point is this: it is our failure to become our perceived ideal that ultimately defines us and makes us unique. It's not easy, but if you accept your misfortune and handle it right, your perceived failure can become a catalyst for profound reinvention. So, at the age of 47, after 25 years of obsessively pursuing my dream, that dream changed. For decades in show business, the ultimate goal of every comedian was to host The Tonight Show. It was the holy grail. And like many people, I thought that achieving that goal would define me as successful. But that is not true. No specific job or career goal defines me, and it should not define you. In 2000, I told graduates to not be afraid to fail, and I still believe that. But today, I tell you that whether you fear it or not, disappointment will come. The beauty is that through disappointment, you can gain clarity, and with clarity comes conviction and true originality. Many of you here today are getting your diploma at this Ivy League school because you have committed yourself to a dream and worked hard to achieve it. And there is no greater cliche in a commencement address than follow your dream. Well, I'm here to tell you that whatever you think your dream is now, it will probably change, and that's okay. 4 years ago, many of you had a specific vision of what your college experience was going to be and who you were going to become. And I bet today most of you would admit that your time here was very different from what you imagined. Your roommates changed, your major changed. For some of you, your sexual orientation changed. I bet some of you have changed your sexual orientation since I began this speech. I know I have. But through the good, and especially the bad, the person you are now is someone you could never have conjured in the fall of 2007. I've told you many things today, most of it foolish, but some of it true. I'd like to end my address by breaking a taboo and quoting myself from 17 months ago. At the end of my final program with NBC, just before signing off, I said, "Work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen." Today, receiving this honor and speaking to the Dartmouth class of 2011 from behind a tree trunk, I have never believed that more. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Right, so he made his crazy comeback. I actually didn't know about him until I saw the documentary, which is very interesting. It gave him a lot more limelight because of that, because he quit and because he stuck to his conviction of what he wanted in life. And that can't be easy because, like he said in his commencement speech, The Tonight Show is the pinnacle of what his career path should have been and should be, and therefore you should just be thankful and sit in your seats and just, take everything that you can for as long as you can. But instead, Conan took a different path. Of course, that wasn't an easy decision, but look at him now. And really what he was trying to say is that even though once you get something, there's always that next something, and that something can always change, especially in this changing world where things are just constantly moving forward. It's changing, your ideas are changing because your environment is constantly changing. He does talk about not being afraid of failing, not being afraid of change, essentially, because failing is a form of change. It's a form of trying and trial and error and just moving forward, seeing what works, right? Experimenting. And because of that, he had his new profound fame. And then, of course, he ended up getting his show back. So not only did he get exactly what he wanted, he got more coverage, more media, more limelight. And I think that happens when you step into your light. So even though you're not in the entertainment industry, when you step into who you know you're meant to be, right? You step into who you know that you can be. And when somebody else, even if they're powerful, like a network, says, no, actually you're something else, you have to be able to be strong enough to say no. Now, granted, he had years and years of him working at The Tonight Show, so there is a time and place to do these things. Oprah had a similar experience where she was a reporter, but she was demoted, and eventually everybody was telling her how she's a horrible reporter because she felt too much emotions for the people she was trying to interview, right? She was too empathetic, and look at her now, right? what Conan was saying, as well as what Oprah experienced, is that what seems like a weakness, right, is something that you should change in your life, but it makes you uniquely you. That is what's going to bring you to the next level. And it's really up to you to make sure that that becomes your unique advantage, and not mistakenly believe that that's something to suppress and to hide and to hold within you. And then that's going to manifest in resentment and anger. But instead, let that shine, let that expand, and let that be the unique selling point of who you are in the marketplace, and who you are just as a person. It's a sensitive topic, especially when it comes to careers, because money is tied to so many different things. It's tied to our livelihood. So we tend to suppress it in our jobs or our careers or whatever it may be. But I think Conan just exemplified that no, there is a time, and especially when you know that it is right, you have that level of conviction and you have that level of clarity that brings you to the next level. So that's really what I took away from what Conan said. But let me know what you think. Comment below. What did you take away from his speech? And if you want me to do more videos like these, because I'm really loving watching successful people just do their thing and really analyzing what that means and what they're really saying as far as relating it to my own life, and perhaps your own life as well. Comment below. Let me know if you want me to keep doing this series of observing other people and really breaking down what that really means. All right, I will see you soon on the next video.